Hi, my name is Karsten Silz. I'm a senior Java developer and live in Milton Keynes in the United Kingdom. I'd like to share some of my work with you, so please enjoy. Today I want to show you two native apps I built with Flutter, Google's cross-platform UI toolkit. Why did I start working with Flutter? I wanted to technically validate a business problem. So what was that business problem? I was approached by a service company whose employees are visiting homes. And these employees need the right information at the right time. They currently do not have that. They need a solution that synchronizes data reliably. And they also need that solution to work when their phones are offline. The phones are the primary computers for the service workers. And these service workers want to take advantage of all the things that phones offer, such as taking pictures, seeing a map, and being able to locate and show the way to your next visit. So how did I go about solving this problem? How did I go about technically validating this business problem? I used Google Firebase, a collection of cloud services. I used it for login for storing data in a No-SQL data store called Firestore, and I used it for storing images, movies, and PDFs. I built a Java backend with JHipster and Spring Boot. I used Google Flutter for the two mobile apps on iOS and Android. And I built the web application with Angular 8. It doesn't do much, but there's a little. So did it work? Yes, it did. I spent about 6 weeks in August and September 2019 building this whole solution. It was my first project with Flutter, but I did sneak in some native code to do geofences on iOS and Android. So what are you about to see? Well, first of all, you're about to see Google Flutter in action, so two native apps on iOS and Android. The apps have a native UI on iOS, which is not always the case because you start out with material design, the Android material design in Flutter on iOS. I switched that out. You're going to see the map, you're going to see images, you're going to see PDFs, and you're going to see data being synced also when offline. It's showtime. Here you see the two applications running in a simulator, iOS on the left and Android on the right. What immediately becomes apparent is that the UI is different. The UI is native. On the right-hand side, you have the Android typical layout, and on the left-hand side, you've got the iOS layout with a nav bar at the bottom. And the buttons and all the other UI elements are native too. So let's get started by looking at some data. Here we have a visit on both sides, and I'd like to show you the pictures. So I was able to add some pictures during my visit, and here we see a picture. It's taken with the application stored in the cloud. You can zoom it, you can share it. You just briefly saw the Google Firebase URL here. I don't want to do that now. So let me go back. And what I want to do now is I want to show you how I can actually take a picture. I'm going to switch over to Android here because I need to use the Android simulator. The iOS simulator can't do that. Please also take note of the button on the Android side. It's a floating action button on the right side, whereas on iOS, it is in the top left. So let me now add a picture here. I'm going to pick an existing picture. I'm going to take this one, and that looks nice. So let me add a comment here. But I'm not happy with it. I'm going to edit it a bit. And that is another feature that I added to the app. Let me just make it a little bigger. And I'm going to zoom in a bit. Okay, now I'm happy with it. Let me just save that. And if you pay attention on iOS on the left-hand side, it should pretty much appear immediately when I save it. And here we go. There's the picture that I just added. Looks pretty similar to the one that I took before. Okay, so let me go back here to the top. Another thing that my application did is it generated invoices. So that's the Java backend. Whenever a visit was completed, it generated a PDF invoice, stored it in Google Firebase, and then the application can access it. So here is an example of such an invoice. It's a PDF invoice, so you can zoom in, zoom out. The next thing I want to show you is the map. I use Google Map for that, available through a plugin in Flutter. And this is the real Google Maps under the hood. It's actually free to use on mobile. So it is a map, so you can zoom around. You see the location of the home. In this particular case, it's the pin, the red map pin. It's in Birmingham. I've got my location here set to be in Milton Keynes Central Station. So when I click on this button in the bottom right, it's going to take me to that location because the phone thinks I'm here. So the same works in Android. The map looks a little different, adjusting to the Android UI conventions. So same can happen here. So let me just go back to my home location, which is in Milton Keynes. Now another thing I can do is I can switch back and say, take me back to where I'm supposed to go next, here symbolized by a cat for whatever reason. And I can also tell the application, show me the route. And the route is actually not calculated within the application, but it utilizes the native application for the map for routing on a particular platform, which is Apple Maps on iOS and Google Maps on Android. So if I click this button, I'm going to be redirected to the Apple Maps, and the Apple Maps will then show the location, and the same happens on Android, just Google Maps is opening. So I'm going to click now. You can see a URL being briefly brought up, and then Apple Maps is coming up and calculating the location. While Apple Maps is still thinking, I'm going to do the same over here on Android. And as you can see, Apple Maps think it's about an hour and 43 minutes, and Google Maps hopefully agrees an hour and 42 minutes. Wonderful. So they both have the map capability and branch off to the native map application to calculate the route. So I'm going to cancel that and go back to the application, and the same here, cancel it and go back to the application. The next thing I'd like to show you is how I can synchronize data. So far we just saw existing data, added a picture, but what is another example of synchronizing data? Well, that is the address of the customer. On both systems, I'm logged in as the customer. My name is Carl Customer, and I live in Birmingham. So what I'd like to do is I'd actually like to edit the address on one phone and see how the changes immediately move over to the other system. This is achieved through the Google Firestore database, which synchronizes data in real time. So let me just add an address line 2 here. We currently do not have one. And as soon as I hit save, then the application stores the data, and Google Firestore synchronizes the data, and it should pretty much immediately show up on the right-hand side on Android. So here we go. And there you saw it, just really pretty much immediately showing up. Now, the next thing I'd like to do is I'd like to show you this also works when I'm being offline. In order to do that, I'm going to switch my computer Wi-Fi off. You see, notice here in the application, I'm now offline. I'm going to edit it and take out the backdoor line again. I'm going to save it. This now actually takes a while because it not only tries to save the application, but it also calculates the location. It uses phone features for that to come up with the latitude and longitude so it can put it on a map. That now doesn't work. You see the UI doesn't really fully handle that, but the data is being saved. Now, when I'm going to switch my computer back online, my simulator is going to be online again as well, and Google Cloud is going to send the data up. So within seconds of me going online again and my phone on the left-hand side showing that, I expect the backdoor in address line 2 on Android to disappear. So now I'm going to turn online again. And we're waiting. So now the application now says you're not offline anymore, which is good to know. And now the right-hand side, the Android simulator should show the backdoor disappearing. And here we go. Now the address was updated and you saw the address line 2 disappearing. So this demonstrated how the Google Firestore has built-in support for offline data. Now the next thing I want to show you, not the last one, the second to last, is the chat. Now in order to show the chat, I actually need to log out here on the left-hand side and log in as a different user, because right now I'm the same user on both systems. So I'm going to log out here and I'm going to log back in. So I'm now logging in as the service worker. Her name is Tricia, team member. And now we can actually do the chat. So how does the chat work? Let me explain. So the chat, again, I built that custom, the UI, but I'm using the Google Cloud Firestore under the hood to synchronize data. So let's just assume I'm the customer, want to know how are my cats. So I'm going to send this message, and this one should immediately show up on the left-hand side, because on the left-hand side we are now the service worker. And there you go. On the left-hand side we immediately saw the notice popping up. So I'm going to reply with a picture that I took before. So I'm going to show this picture, and you saw it pops up immediately on the right-hand side. As the customer, I'm pretty happy, so I'm going to use a little happy cat here. And the cat symbol shows up on the left-hand side as well. So that was the demonstration for the chat functionality, custom UI built by me, but Google Firestore under the hood. The last feature I'd like to show you is a bit of a party trick, because Flutter doesn't use native widgets, it emulates them. What it allows you to do is actually you can switch the UI at runtime, the operating system at runtime. So you can make an iOS app turn into an Android app and vice versa. So if I click this button here, this little Android logo, then my iOS simulator is going to show an application that looks like an Android one. And the same is true here on Android. If I switch over on the Android side, then it's going to look like an iOS application. So here we go. And now let me close this. We have an iOS application. Well, nearly, because what's missing is the bottom nav bar. That is not a Flutter mistake. That's on my app. My app doesn't completely redraw when you switch that setting. Now on iOS, it actually works perfectly. So on iOS now, I've got the application running and it looks and feels like an Android app. So this concludes my demo of the application. So what did we just see? We saw Google Flutter in action, 2 native applications running on iOS and Android. The iOS application had a native UI. We saw how the application utilized the map. We saw how I was able to take pictures and store and access images in the cloud. We saw how my application generated an invoice as a PDF. And we saw how the application could sync data between the iOS and Android version and also work when offline. So thank you for your attention and time. If you want to find out more about me, then please visit my website. And that's a wrap for today. I hope you liked what you saw. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.